Well, each week a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week sounding off on the Senate GOP amending a hate crimes bill, Fisher's leaders unveiling the Nickel Plate Trail master plan, and a marketing tech firm bringing its headquarters from Arizona to Indiana. Our insiders this week are Vox Global Managing Director Mike Marker, also Clear Object CEO John McDonald, and Kiwanis Youth Program's Executive Director, Christina Hale. And welcome one and all to the Insiders for another week. An eventful week, certainly at the Indiana Statehouse. A number of measures making their way through the Statehouse. The one getting perhaps the most attention and the most spotlight, most debate, John, is the hate crimes bill. And passed out of committee, but then the protections for groups were taken out of the measure. 24 hours later. Yeah. And I can tell you in the technology community, we have been on the telephone almost 24 hours a day with our business leaders. We're standing with the governor. He said this does not get us off the list of states that do not have hate crimes or bias crimes laws, and he's exactly right, and that's exactly where we stand. You know, the business community in general, tech community in particular, has been very vocal about why this is necessary to have this hate crimes bill go through. Explain again to folks who may not understand why it's so important in your view.
Capital and talent fuel the technology industry, and the technology industry is every industry. It needs to be every industry, and you need to see it that way because our manufacturing companies need to survive by teching up their products. And if we can't compete for talent because people don't want to live here or move here or work here because of backward policies like this, we will have no future in our technology industry and no future in our business here in Indiana. It's just that simple.
That's exactly right. And let's take that to 30,000 feet. It's not just the tech community, it's all of the business community. I work for a global headquarters. It's over 100 years old. We're in 70 countries. And I'll tell you, we hear from our members everywhere about Indiana. Is it even safe for me to travel there? Because our reputation precedes us, and we need to let people know. We have to have everyone know that Indiana truly is about Hoosier hospitality and caring about all people, and it's time to walk that talk.
Some have hearkened back to the RFRA controversy of just a couple of years ago, that might in fact re-emerge. Now, we should say, as we're taping the show, there is a vote likely taking place. Don't know how that's yet exactly going to turn out, but is there that risk that the unwanted spotlight from outside of the national spotlight will shine on Indiana? Absolutely.
We saw that. We saw in every newspaper all around the world how many people questioned us and questioned Indiana and our very values as citizens of this state. And I really appreciate our governor taking this leadership to say, this isn't right, not on my watch, and there's still time. So I hope that our legislators step up and do the right thing.
I think the unfortunate reality is hate crimes are on the rise, and the number of hate groups are on the rise as well. And that's why Hoosiers have overwhelmingly said that they are supportive of hate crimes legislation that is comprehensive in nature. That's why Governor Holcomb has said it matters. It's why the business community has spoken out. There is overwhelming support for this. And what the Senate did this past week is an embarrassment and a disappointment. It comes over to the House now, and the pressure is on Speaker Bosma and the House to make this right.
The tech community, the business leaders, but not our legislators. And that needs to be said and heard. That's a miss.
And we don't know, but what happens here if this is done? The governor's been very vocal, very supportive. Yeah. Where does this?
To the House, right? Opportunity now. Yeah. Everybody says we have the last half of the session to go. Well, that's true, right? We're even more emboldened to help that group of legislators understand the big miss here.
And I think part of what happened here in this first half of the session was people wanted to avoid RFRA 2.0. They wanted to avoid a national spotlight here on us being on the wrong side of history potentially again. And so the hope was that the right thing would be done in the Senate. It wasn't. And so now it's on the House and the pressure's on them, and we're going to see likely a lot more national attention on this. and hopefully the right thing can get done.
Yeah, we'll obviously be keeping an eye on that story. Very quickly, John, another tech issue is this data center taxation bill that's going through that seems to be gaining some momentum.
Right. We triple tax data centers for infrastructure purchases, for property taxes, and for the utilities to run them. And the argument in the past has been, well, these don't create many jobs, but these tend to be the first things that companies like Google and Apple put in before they bring in the call centers, before they bring in the sales centers and sales support centers. So we're just completely nixed from the list before we even get a shot at these things. And this is where all the data goes in the IoT economy, and we got to be there.
All right, shifting gears now to development, redevelopment, economic development in communities around the state. Christina Fisher's unveiled their master plan 2040. Got students, young kids really engaged in this. A very ambitious plan creating 5 distinct districts throughout the area.
Yeah, and it really harkens back to our earlier conversation as well about talent. This is about talent attraction and really finally being strategic as we grow communities of tomorrow. That's where people are going to want to live, play, spend their time. And we know that populations now are very transient. They go where they want to live, not necessarily where their jobs are. And we also know there are metrics out there that can tell us that people choose to live and then grow career around that. And this is really capitalizing on some good thinking that will really lift up Central Indiana.
Yeah, and Mike, projects like this aren't just good things, important things to do, again, for that talent attraction piece.
Absolutely, and one of the things I'm excited about there is the Rail to Trail initiative, the momentum behind that, and not to forget the assets that are currently there, like Conner Prairie, what they're doing on the White River. And I think what you see happening there is good for employment, it's good for talent attraction, it's also making it a destination that people would like to come from, a Chicago or a Cincinnati or other places to come visit, spend their dollars, spend their time.
Should mention also, Mike and John, you can weigh in too, but Lev, again, a marketing technology company, had a presence here, moving their headquarters from Arizona to Indiana, adding to this hub, this vibrant ecosystem, if you will, of marketing technology companies.
Yeah, the 3-year success story, moving their headquarters here. They talk about how each space they go into, they keep growing out of, which is a nice problem to have. One thing to watch, though, they're a Salesforce partner.
Yes.
Salesforce is important to them. Back to hate crimes, Salesforce is pretty disappointed right now in what's happened. And they were part of the RIFRA initiative, too. So if we want organizations like Lev to grow, we need to do the right thing.
Even the great celebration going on of the Fisher's rail history in this project doesn't overcome that problem. It really doesn't.
One issue too I should have mentioned at the Statehouse, Indy 11, Indy's soccer team, have for several years ownership been trying to get a new stadium. There's a big proposal out there now. That proposal at the Statehouse is moving forward. Got some positive reaction for what ultimately could be, if it happens, a new stadium and mixed-use development.
And once again, this is about vision for neighborhoods and growing places to live, thrive, enjoy. Sport has been a great strategy that Indianapolis and Central Indiana has tended to double down on for great effect. Ursal Ozdemir once asked me, Christina, where are the visionaries that are looking at the horizon and seeing the next tall building? I think he's seeing the next community being built around something like the Indy 11 Stadium.
Interesting. Christina, you're a Boilermaker, right?
I am.
Purdue, Mitch Daniels, again, a lot of schools have taken on this affordability issue, but I think Purdue in a lot of ways, and Mitch Daniels has taken a leadership role, announced this week for the 8th straight year, I think they're going to keep tuition frozen at 2012 levels.
It's fantastic. I really appreciate President Daniels really looking at a student perspective. It's not about keeping tuition affordable. It's providing value for the dollars that you do spend. You get an amazing, globally renowned degree for a decent investment.
Yep. Mike, speaking of Purdue, a climate report came out, an annual report from Purdue University this week that essentially said with global changes, global warming, whatever you want to call it, businesses stand because of cooling costs that are going to be out there and on the rise and in demand. Indiana businesses stand to be footing a much bigger bill.
Yeah, I think the findings from Purdue said up to $100 million annually that businesses might see by the mid-century. It's good that they're coming out with those findings. It's also nice to see Indiana University with their Environmental Resiliency Institute that's working with community, local elected officials to plan for what comes next. So if it's infrastructure, roads, bridges, waterways, that they can address the big climate change that's ahead.
Speaking of, as we were earlier, quality of life, quality of place, the Indy Chamber has unveiled plans for a music strategy, you know, trying to leverage the heritage, the history, the diversity of music that already exists here, but really trying to amp that up and make that part of the culture, part of the vibe here in Indianapolis. What do you think of that?
Well, we need to do some things at the Statehouse as well around making that a good place to build businesses as well. I mean, when you're doing the community work now of building programs for Netflix or music or whatever, these are really small businesses that you need to get venture funding for and the like, and we're kind of keeping that down in our business community now, not seeing them that way. So hopefully we can wrap around that effort some things to build those companies up too.
10 seconds, Christina, what do you think? Good strategy, good idea?
A very good idea. I'd also like to emphasize Film Indy is pushing forward tax credits for the creative industry.
That's right.
And that really goes hand in hand with that as well.
All right, Christina Hale, Mike Marker, John McDonald, thank you one and all for another great edition of The Insiders, and we'll be right back after this.